You're listening to the Daily Wealth Junkies show. I'm Brandon Dukeman here with Will Harvey. Thanks for joining us today for another daily episode. But first, before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our show so that way you're not missing any of our daily episodes. And join us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/wealth junkies. I'm going to turn it over to Will to get started for the day.
Thanks, Brandon. Today on the show, we have Michael Convery. I hope I said your name right, Michael. Awesome. Okay. He gave me the salute. So Michael is the CMO behind a company that did 150 million in sales over the past, let's call it 8 years. It's called the Educated Wealth Center. And he's, like I said, he's been doing it for 8 years now, joined his father, and is just crushing it. So with that, Michael, can you just give the listeners a little bit more about your background and what got you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So about eight and a half years ago, I worked for a company by the name of Vivint Home Automation. So
is that the alarm company? They sell alarm systems and stuff?
Yes, they do. You've probably seen them knocking on your doors throughout the summer, the little signs. So they're one of ADT's main competitors, almost like ADT there. It's a payroll, but ADT's main competitors. And I did door-to-door sales for them for a summer. It's the worst summer of my life. It was the hardest job I've ever had. Many days of not selling anything, working on the doorsteps of Baltimore. And after having a semi-successful, it's the worst job I ever had.
Did you have your bulletproof vest on when you're doing that?
I didn't, but the police officers told me not to be there after dark. So they would drop us off on the doors, and then at nighttime, you would get picked up unless somebody made a sale. Then you'd have to go into a convenience store and hide out until the end of
That's too funny.
End of the sales cycle. So I went from that and realized that, sales is very important, and I enjoyed talking with people. So I naturally went from that right into Aflac when I moved back home. So came back from Baltimore to South Florida, jumped into Aflac, did that for about 6 months. And then after 6 months, I was at an event that I'm actually going to this July again, because we go every year. It's called the World Series of Sales. I was at the World Series of Sales event. It was 2013, so it was my second time being out there. Had a little bit of success with Vivint, had some success with Aflac. I was their top young agent in the South Florida region. So I was getting to work on some pretty cool accounts with my manager. Another tough job. I mean, realistically, at the end of the day, you are your own business. When you work with Aflac, you're responsible for all your sales, all your leads. And really, there's no point to, in my mind, work for them long-term unless you kind of, really love the job. But at the end of the day, you're building your brand just like anything else. So I was out at the World Series of Sales in 2013, saw Tony Robbins speak out there. We had dinner at the Cowboys Stadium because it's a big sales conference. So we were having dinner at the Cowboys Stadium. And a gentleman by the name of Alan Becker, who's a longtime friend of my family, comes up to me and he's just like, man, if you're doing this good at Aflac, you're in the wrong business. He's like, you'd do a lot better in financial services and you would make a lot more money. So being 24 at the time, around that age, I was like, I'd rather make a lot more money and also build something that's mine, not be held to Aflac and their brand, because that's really all they give you. So hopped on a plane coming back from Dallas. It was just me and my dad, and I turned to him and I'm like, I quit my job. I gave up my contracts. I'm coming to work for you. He turns to me and he says,
awesome.
Yeah, he turns to me and he says, I'll pay you what you're worth. And I'm excited. Maybe that's something. He's like, well, I'm like, what's that? He's like, absolutely nothing. What do you mean? Like, you have no experience in this business. He's like, you don't know what you're doing. So I was like, you know what? Why not? It can't hurt. I don't really like what I'm doing anyways, even though it's making good money. It's not exactly fulfilling. So left Aflac, and the first year, we doubled the business when I took over the marketing. I had a marketing background from college, and then also just leaned on a lot of different people in the industry, a lot of books. A lot of my dad's friends inside of the industry were very, very kind enough and nice enough to open up what they do and show me how they market and the things that work for them. So while my dad focused on the investment management, because he obviously has to focus on investments for our clients, I really dove into the marketing, and he had really no marketing. So we were doing around $450,000 in revenue with crap marketing, crap branding, crap logos, pretty much just everything was crap.
And I came in.
Yeah, and I came in and revamped it and then decided to hit the ground running in the marketing department. And then we've been off to the races ever since. So it's been good the last 8 years. We doubled our business the first year. We doubled it again the following year. Then year after year, we've had some consistent growth since. So we're doing, in this industry, it's not anything that to look at like it's the biggest numbers in the world, but we do multi-million dollars in revenue every year.
I would say $150 million in revenue is a pretty good number.
Yeah.
Well, $150 million in sales. So
sales, excuse me.
Sales, yeah, that's roughly about $16 million in lifetime revenue. So
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Fortunate. Yeah, we've been very fortunate, and it's been a good run.
So you essentially, you and your dad are kind of yin and yang, where you're the one that's driving all the business in, and then he essentially takes it and handles it. Is that a good way to put it?
Yes, that's our main advantage. That's the big advantage we have is I do the business development. I handle the marketing, the hiring, the payroll, the strategy, really everything top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just focuses on what he does really well. He's been an investment advisor for 30 years now.
Nice.
So he just focus on working with clients. He does not like hiring people. He does not like planning out, compensation, although we do confer on it before I pay anybody any extra money because, at the end of the day, he's the president and I'm the CMO. We'll confer on that, but usually he's not meeting an employee until they're already hired, and he really focuses on what he does. And then we're also building a team behind him, so he no longer has to do that aspect of the business, and then eventually it'll just be me here.
Very cool. Very cool.
That's a good way to work it.
Yeah. So going back in time, what did you do before you started as a door-to-door salesman? I don't think I've ever met a true door-to-door somebody who's done that. That's
and someone that had the balls.
I think of the 1950s when I think of way back when people doing that. But what were you doing before that, and then how did you start that?
Well, I will say before I get into that, for any college kids out there, if you have a summer off, you can make a very lucrative amount of money in a short period of time. So I made about $15,000 in 3 months. And for me at the time,
wow,
a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
The gentleman that recruited me in, his brother is the manager at the company. It was my best friend at the time. He does about $300,000 in sales in about 4 to 5 months. So you can make a very good living doing door-to-door sales. They normally recruit from the Mormon background because they get them right after they usually get them right after they've done their Bible, their preaching and their religious sharing, and then they bring them on in.
So they're comfortable with knocking on doors and all that.
Exactly. That's where they get them. That's usually the people that thrive in that business. I went out there with, I think 1, 2, 3 of my friends. So one quit before we ever made it out there. The other quit 2 weeks in. And then my cousin lasted about a month before he quit. So,
and what was driving them to quit? It was hard.
Just like most sales companies, they don't really give you much training. We got out there for the summer, and the pre-training was, here's your shirt, here's your name badge, go to your local neighborhoods. So I did some knocking around town with no, guidance whatsoever. And then my training with my manager was about 4 hours. Saw him make a sale, and he's like, have a good day. So prior to that, I'd always, had the entrepreneurial bug. I started a few businesses that didn't work out. And then I mainly worked in restaurant industry and a couple call centers. So a lot of sales orientated jobs, but nothing crazy. And then had a couple failed businesses. I'm sure like most people before they start out, they have an idea, they execute on the idea, it doesn't work out. So a few failed businesses.
Can you talk about that real quick? Can you talk about, because I like talking about failures, because I for myself, I learn more from failure than I do from success. So can you just talk about that in hindsight? What was it that caused them to fail?
Yeah, well, my main business that I jumped into, probably the biggest one that I had a passion about, just came down to it was CBD business back in the day. So this was before CBD was even.
Yeah, you were just a few years too early.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was like 10 years too early, and also still it's logistically a nightmare to be in that industry.
Right.
Banking, I know they're working on the Banking Act, so hopefully that will be settled. You can't get easy banking. So I was starting out with the business and just having really no success whatsoever. Went out to a conference, got it all set up, got the marketing down. Then after about 8 months, had a couple sales locally to some local shops that sell CBD. So had my product in a couple different areas, but after a while to go national, I wanted to bring it out of the States. My lawyer was like, you're running into, a million and one problem,
Wow.
logistic nightmares. He's like, you can end up getting slapped with lawsuits, really just didn't want to take the risk that was going to be involved.
Right.
It's not worth making money if you're going to end up in a courtroom at the end of the day.
Yeah, seriously. Spend all your money
Entrepreneurs
on a
have
lawyer.
you have to take some sort of risk to be an entrepreneur. So I'm very okay with risk, but not if it's going to end me up behind bars. So that kind of persuaded me in a different direction. And then I closed that down, sold off all my inventory, and then kind of just started figuring out what was next after that.
Gotcha.
Very cool. So you mentioned you had a kind of a marketing degree, marketing background from college. Did you study marketing in college, or did you even really?
Yeah, I studied marketing in college. Didn't learn too much because now we're in the digital age. So nothing we do to this day was really spoken about. And a lot of things I've learned in marketing, I've noticed have been outside of the classroom. So going to different.
It's funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, weird.
Yeah, just at the beginning of the show, a lot of courses, a lot of different mentors. I've been fortunate to go out to Gary Vee's office a year back and spend time with his team and go through his 4D program and learn marketing from them. I was just at a mastermind a couple months ago in Chicago, learning marketing from some of the best people in the financial service industry. So a lot of the stuff I learned, I realized, was always outside of the classroom. It was never taught inside the classroom. Those marketing degrees are kind of fancy things to tell your friends and family you got.
That's right.
Yeah, it's cool to put up on the mantle and say that this is what I have, but
yeah,
exactly. Right. Those would make you feel good about yourself, but all the stuff I learned was all pretty much after college. A lot of it was from leaning on our connections inside the industry. Like I said in the beginning, we have a couple friends that are far more successful than us that have pretty much unveiled everything they do in the marketing department and how they run their practice top to bottom. So relationships at the end of the day is definitely one of the things that got us to where we are and gave us the ability to know what works and what doesn't work. We do make some mistakes and obviously test things that still don't work to this day. But a lot of the things that we implemented at first, especially that first run, was me leaning on all the contacts that we had already and just kind of, being a sponge, listening to what they said worked and implementing it and not being arrogant enough to think that I knew it all.
Right. I was just about to say that, being humble enough to basically say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know as much as you do. So leaning on the people that are higher and more educated than you are in that field, take advantage of that.
Yeah. I think that's something everybody needs to do consistently throughout their career. Even if you're at a higher level, there's always someone ahead of you.
Absolutely.
And if you can learn from them and save yourself maybe 2 or 3 years on the learning curve, you're only going to get there quicker.
Yeah, that's so good. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, just take bits and pieces of what other successful people are doing and implement it on your own. And that sounds like what you guys have done essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't say there's anything we've done that over the past 8 years has been a complete breakthrough that, no one's done before. Like I always tell my friends when they're starting out in any sort of entrepreneurial journey, I'm like, just look at what's already working and make it yours. I mean, there's
bingo.
best marketers are just copycats at the end of the day.
That's it. That's it. So when I want to get into all that and what you're doing now, but before that, I want to talk about Aflac. So tell us about just what you were doing there, how you were finding success, because it sounds like you were one of the top guys there. So just tell us about that.
Not the top guy, top young agent in the area.
Top young agent,
top young agent. But very similar. Aflac, they do something called four-corner marketing. I'm not sure if they still do it to this day, but very similar to door-to-door sales. So when I came into Aflac and I told them that I had a door-to-door sales background, they immediately were like, "Oh, please, will you take the job? I mean, just come on board." Because their market is called Four Corner. So a lot of what we would do would be hop on SunBiz Network, which is the Florida business network, and look up companies in the area that have anywhere from 3 to 10 employees, try to find out the CEO's name or find out the COO's name on the database, and then essentially just go right up into their building and say, hey, secretary, or hey, Will, I'm here to see Mr. Dukeman. And then really just trying to get past that gatekeeper. And then the premise behind that immediately would be, once you get past that gatekeeper, to do a quick 5-minute, 10-minute, meeting or pitch. And then once you got through that pitch, to set a follow-up meeting. So it's really just door-to-door sales all over again, going in blind,
Mm-hmm.
getting somebody that would want to take that meeting or take that 10 minutes for you, and then coming back with your sales presentation. So not too far different from what I was already doing.
Yeah.
And once you got that first sale in that area, same going back all the way to Vivint. When you had a sale in a neighborhood, you'd always refer back to the sign in the front lawn.
Right.
So if I sold, Brandon, and I came to your house, Will, I'd immediately be like, oh, Brandon next door? You see his little orange little sign? We just set him up with everything. So, we got him with the alarm and the new cameras, because that was new at the time. So we just got him set up with his 4-point camera system. You'd probably be interested, and then just walk into their home. Same thing with Aflac. You go back and then say, hey, I just spoke with Mr. Dukeman. He owns the business right next door to you, and he just got it for his employees. So you were always looking for the first sale, then running with momentum from sale number one and working around that area using the people you've existingly sold to move on to the next person.
To get credibility.
Yeah.
Right. That's very cool. So you were I'll let you go, Brandon, but you were essentially going just from B2C to doing the same thing now, B2B in essence.
Yeah. I didn't know it was going to be the same thing. I thought it was going to be a little bit differently until they wrote me in. I was, in my head at the time, I'm like, oh, Aflac, this got to be somewhat different, but nope, it was essentially just going from B2C to B2B, but now all of a sudden, instead of going door to door with a bright orange alarm shirt and a nice little name tag, now we're going in there with jeans and maybe like a polo or a dress shirt to try to look like we're their friends. So, it was really just the same thing all over again.
That's very cool.
That's easy transition then, I guess. But my question was going to be, I think you mentioned earlier that you're fairly comfortable talking to people and meeting people, but for someone that's scared, this type of sales thing scares the crap out of them, but they want to get into sales, what would you suggest to them to kind of shake the jitters of going door to door or business to business here?
That's a great question. One, I would say just get out there and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the only way you're going to get comfortable. 7 years ago, we started a radio show in 2013 called Retire Yesterday, Live Today Radio. I was the absolute opposite of comfortable. And then just having the discipline to continuously doing it, day after day. I have many different episodes on our old hard drive where I've just walked off set because I felt I sounded uneducated, wasn't able to hold my own, was tripping over my words. So one, just getting out and doing it if it's something you're passionate about and learning. And then one little trick I found really works well, as crazy as it sounds, is improv classes. Not stand-up, but traditional improv where you're working with somebody to create scene work within a short period of time. Because again, that's going to teach you to think on your feet very quickly, teach you how to perform in front of others, and you're going to get out of your comfort zone. So I think one of the underlying things people could immediately implement is doing some stand-up improv classes, not stand-up where it's just you by yourself, but when you're working within a traditional team group. So it's a little bit different. And then just doing it. Because, I was not good the first day I knocked the door. I didn't make a sale for the first 21 days. Yep. I hated my job at the time. I quit at one point and packed up my car. And then my dad told me I had nowhere to go. So I immediately unpacked my car and stayed out there. So you just got to get out and do it. It's definitely not a comfortable feeling at first. I've always enjoyed talking to people, but in sales, it's entirely different because now you're not talking to people, you're trying to influence them to take action. So
people have their guards up a lot of times. And that's true. Go do the improv, but don't do the Michael Scott. I don't know if you guys have seen The Office. You remember he does the improv and all he does is he pulls out the finger gun every time. He thinks that's the way to do it. That's a tangent,
you just got to do it. You don't learn by sitting on your butt at the end of it. And then books. There's plenty of sales books out there to help
Right.
get you a little bit comfortable along the way, but you just got to do it.
Yeah, like I was just about to say, the books are good, but the books aren't going to get you out there and talking to people. The book's going to have you sitting in your chair reading and give you all the strategies and best ways to do it. But unless you actually do it, you're not going to have that
Doing
experience.
it. Yeah, taking action is the most important part. So,
Yeah,
Michael, can you
absolutely.
talk? Yeah, I'm sorry. What were you saying?
I was gonna say confidence comes from competency, and you can't gain competency unless you're consistently disciplined and trying to hone your craft. So you just got to do it until you get the
Amen.
confidence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
No one was great the first day they started.
that's right.
very true.
That's
Yeah, we had to
exactly
tell
right.
ourselves that too.
Yeah.
So,
So go to where you are now. Can you just tell us a little bit about when you started working? Well, when you left Aflac, when you started working with your dad, and just because I heard when you were telling your story, you kind of took a leap of faith there. You left something that was, it sounded like it was pretty, it was paying pretty well, and you were doing good. So tell us just about that, and some lessons that might be in there with taking a leap of faith, and then just how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, well, with Aflac, I mean, I never saw myself doing it super, super long term. I immediately
Okay.
sat down after being at the conference and kind of asked myself the question, do I see myself doing this 10 years? And the answer to that was no. So
Okay.
part of it was you're going to take some, if you're younger, if you're going to take some chances, it's always best to do them when you're young. Because
mhm.
once you have a family, I have friends that have families and they'd love to jump into certain business opportunities. But once you start to buy a home, settle down,
Yeah.
it's a lot harder to take that leap of faith and, play with a lot of risk. So one, I didn't see myself technically being there because I didn't enjoy it. I mean, it was door to door all over again. So really not utilizing anything I knew about marketing prior. And just, I took a leap of faith, but also I took a leap of faith kind of just really knowing it would work out at the end of the day. Cause
That's
I was
awesome.
able
What made you
to
know that it was going to work out?
had a lot of opportunities to lean on people. So, being at a conference like that, I saw the bigger picture. I saw people that were having a lot greater success than my father's business already was. And I was just like, well, why not me? Why not us? And I think that's one thing a lot of people have before they jump out and start a business is hey, I could do this better, or why not me? So
Mm-hmm.
it was the
Yeah.
question of, hey, I think I could do this. Why not me? These guys are not much smarter than me. So the guys I was running around at the industry with, I didn't think were much smarter than me. So I thought immediately of, obviously I was younger, so the arrogance probably kicked in a little bit to where I was like, I could do this and I could probably do this a lot better than most of these guys. Nobody hears Einstein. Everybody's obviously a hard worker and they're great implementers, but I didn't run into anyone that made me feel insignificant or like they were superior to me on an intellectual level. So immediately I was like, yo, I can do this. I don't think this will be that hard, but at the same time it'll be hard because I'm leaving what I know and I'm going into work with my dad. So we've had our fair share of ups and downs as
I'm
far
sure.
as over the last 8 years. But the leap of faith, I kind of thought it was going to work out from day one. I never really thought what would be the worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought this is what I want to do. I like the idea of being in business. I like the idea of running a business. And I've kind of had some experience in the past with failed businesses. Then I had the experience of sales. So I knew I didn't want to go into local businesses for the rest of my life, just saying, hey, I know Brandon, but really not knowing him at all, just kind of making it
Right.
up to get my foot through the door. So the leap of faith for me was, it was kind of easy. I just kind of was like, this is what I'm going to do. Let's see how it's going to work out. I was young at the time. I didn't need to make much money and I had some money stored up and saved. So that wasn't the most important thing to me. And I knew I could always go back to something, I could always go back to Aflac. I could always go back to Vivint. I'm
Right.
sure I could call them to this day and say, hey, I want to come work the doors and they'd be happy to have me. Even though I was
Yeah.
doing good, I'm not crazy to think most of those companies don't just hire nearly anyone they can get their hands on a lot of times.
Right.
So my friend's just getting a job with Northwestern Mutual and he's like, they really want me. And I'm like, dude, they want everybody. They'll
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
anyone. They'll
Anybody
take the
that can
job.
make them money.
Yeah, because they hire numbers a lot of times. So
Because
I
it's
always
nice.
knew I could fall back if I had to. And at the time, he was doing well. It's not like my dad wasn't already doing well. He was already doing around 450, $500,000 in revenue. So I was like, we can easily pump this up. I mean, it's just sitting there, and we just need to make some changes. Your marketing's awful. You need help. I'll help you. And then we just kind of hit off to the races and just started running right from the start.
That's so cool.
So I got two things real quick, but as a young guy, you said you were probably about 24, 25 when you got into this. And you said there were a lot of individuals who were really nice and helped you out and kind of gave you their techniques and strategies. Were they older individual? Yeah. Okay. So how did they?
Everybody in this industry is a lot older than me. So I'm usually the young guy at the conferences.
Right.
There's a couple guys around my age. I'm 31. So a couple guys around my age, but mostly the gentlemen that I'm fortunate to lean on are in their 40s. They've been in the industry for a long period of time. They've had a lot of success.
Yeah, that's what I've seen as well.
And that was kind of going to be my question as the younger guy. How is it? How do you fit in, and how do you make it a little bit more comfortable for yourself, where you have these older individuals who might look down upon you because of your age?
I just try to stay authentic to myself, to be honest.
Yeah.
You definitely get that sometimes where I'm like, I don't necessarily fit in. They respect when we talk about our numbers, they respect that, but there's no real relationship, after an event of that nature. Mm-hmm. So I try to get around younger entrepreneurs. I actually coach 10 people on Sundays that I have a small group of people that I help that are younger than me and, just starting out with their entrepreneurial journey. So I help them kind of put the execution plans in place and strategies they need. So I definitely give back and try to spend some time with younger entrepreneurs. But as far as within the industry, never really felt like I fit in. And a lot of the guys are older than me. So I stay true to myself, where we're at conferences and it's business casual. I will still wear, ripped jeans to an event without really, thinking twice about it. And
I'm that same way.
Not like everybody's uptight. There are some guys out there that are uptight, but there's a lot of guys out there that are also very down to earth. So I just think it's, finding the people within the industry that you identify with. One of the guys I look up to more than anyone in this industry is completely countercultural to this industry. He's a buddy by the name of Jason Wink. He's a mentor of mine. I'm fortunate enough to call him a friend now. And he has long hair, a beard, doesn't own a collar t-shirt, and he gets up on stage and speaks at financial conferences, and you will never see him in a jacket. And for a long time, he got looked down upon.
Absolutely. I'm sure he did.
Success gets him, he's very, very successful, and his success gets him recognition and respect. And obviously there's still people to this day that will never respect him because he doesn't fit the mold.
Right.
But he's not trying to appease to those people at the end of the day. So
right.
I just stay true to myself.
I love that. And you mentioned that you have multiple mentors and that you just started picking the brains of these guys that were further along than you, more successful. And I think that that's such an important thing to do when you're first getting started. How were you able to get those meetings or lunches or whatever you did to learn from those guys?
Building relationships. So some of them were through courses, just like, Brandon was talking about in the beginning, because you don't necessarily need to have lunch. I've been fortunate to be around Darren Hardy, and I know his mentor at the time is the same mentor of Tony Robbins, which was Jim Rome, but they never really spent time together. He always refers to him as his mentor, but I think they may have had one lunch over the course of what he would call a 10-year learning curve. He read the books. So a lot of it was courses and books. And then some of these people I've built further relationships with. So my buddy Jason, I went out to his office because we do business with him. He runs Formula Folios. And then after being out at his office, I just kind of wined and dined him, sent him, a picture frame with photos in it, sent him, Empathy Wine, which is Gary Vee's wine club. I signed him up for the club and I sent him wine. So, and then following him on Instagram, reaching out and saying, happy birthday, all these things, until eventually we actually became like legitimate friends after having been at his offices. So that's one way, just really being authentic, identifying people you really want to have relationships with. That way, when you reach out, if they don't respond, awesome, you did it because you actually wanted to. And then some of them, like I went out to Gary Vee's event at the 4Ds a couple years back and learned digital marketing from his staff. Don't really consider him a mentor because, he's not someone I talk to, but still getting knowledge and little nuggets from him on a mentor type relationship where, you're reading their books, you're going to their events, you're being a part of their courses. And then the other mentors just kind of fell in my lap. Some of my dad's friends were just like, whatever you want. You ever want to give me a call? My buddy Alan Becker, who's the guy that, said, if you can do Aflac, you can do this a lot better, because he had been at Aflac previously. He's the type of guy that's like, here's my phone number. You need anything, man, like give me a call. That's and awesome. You can lean on me. So a little bit of everything, some whining, dining, some just very generous people within this industry that just opened up their doors. We know another person that has, I believe, an $18 million practice year over year, revenue wise. And they sent me their entire, I called him and he's like, yeah, man, anything you need, I love your dad. I'll send you our manual. And if, you really want to know anything about our practice, we don't do anything anymore. It's really our COO. Here's our number. So
no kidding.
Just real genuine relationships with people and real friendships to where they've kind of opened up the doors to certain things they've done.
That's very cool.
That's huge. All those connections.
Yeah, very lucky. So there's definitely a portion of luck that plays into this.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate to meet Gerard Adams a couple months back, who's big in the influencer space. And he was the first to say, he's like, man, I definitely built my business, because he was the founder of Elite Daily. He's like, I built my business and knew what I was doing, but he's like, there was a lot of luck there, like right timing, right relationships, people putting you in the right place. And that's one thing people don't talk about when it comes to success or entrepreneurship. A lot of times you can definitely go about it yourself, but sometimes it's being in the right place at the right time, being fortunate to have a little bit of luck on your side.
Yeah.
And I think the luck comes from staying consistent, staying disciplined, because if you quit, you're never going to get lucky.
Yeah, exactly.
But constantly doing it, you're eventually going to have some wins.
Mm-hmm.
As long as the wins are bigger than the losses, it's gonna work itself out all right.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
That's so true. So what are your plans moving forward? What's kind of the vision for you guys going forward?
Yeah, going forward, we're actually starting to craft a new vision for the company now that it's the month of December going into January 2020. But we just moved into a bigger office this year, brought on a videographer. So we have a full-time videographer to really dive deeper into the media and digital marketing aspect.
Oh, nice.
Because not a lot of financial guys really have that figured out. So that's one thing that I really want to spend a lot of time doing is content, producing content at scale, retargeting it with Facebook ads, the right offer to the right people that are already interested in our messaging. But next year is going to be a tough year because we're going to be looking for a bigger office space. We want to bring on 3 advisors behind my father so he can literally just never be here anymore if he doesn't want to be. So
nice.
Really going beyond ourselves now and scaling. So bringing on probably 4 new employees next year would be the vision, and getting into a bigger office upstairs because we just moved into this office and we've already outgrown it. So we're running into the struggles of office space, but
good problem to have, right?
Yeah, it's a great problem to have. So just consistently doing what we've been doing, but now growing maybe a little bit more beyond ourselves and taking more of a leadership role, especially him. He's been in the business. He now wants to be working on the business, buy back some of his free time. So that's really the goal for next year, to get more people around us so we can do more high dollar activities and spend time doing things we enjoy and less of the time doing things we don't enjoy, create more media content. We started a podcast, but we don't necessarily have the time to record consistently because we also do our radio show. So just being more of a media powerhouse and stepping into that with full force, because not a lot of people in our industry do that. It's very traditional marketing and it's very predictable. So no one really does content like we do it. And I think that's our main advantage going into 2020.
Yeah.
So, Michael, that's real quick. Actually, talk about kind of the marketing strategies that you guys use. And, I would assume you're using social media and things like that, but when you got into the business, what kind of marketing strategies were you guys using, and what did you kind of transition that into?
When I first jumped in, it was all direct mail. Still use it to this day. So anyone that says, the marketers on the internet that say direct mail is dead, they've never sent a direct mail piece in their life.
Right.
Right.
Anything about direct mail. So when I jumped in this industry, it's very predictable. A lot of direct mail and a lot of seminars, live events, and networking events. So I came in and took over the direct mail. And one thing with direct mail is it doesn't work very consistently, and it doesn't work well unless you constantly revamp your demographics and revamp your messaging consistently. So that was what we were really doing at first, was just direct mail, didn't have a radio show. And I jumped in and made sure that direct mail was immediately, working to its highest potential. So constantly changing headlines. If we mail a mailer out over the course of a year, you'll see that same mailer with maybe 10, 11, 12 different headlines, where most people will just send the same piece for an entire year, and then the response rate goes through the floor. So constantly tweaking our messaging in direct mail. That was the first step, was to maximize our mail. And then once we figured out what worked with our direct mail, just like anything else, I mean, you could relate it right back to Facebook. Once you have a message that consistently works, doubling down on that message and doing it as much as humanly possible. So once we got the direct mail dialed in, then it was, how much can we do this in our local market, and how often can we do it? So just then necessarily not reinventing the wheel, just taking that wheel that already we knew kind of worked. A lot of advisors in the industry still send direct mail, but tweaking it till it worked really well for us, and then running. And then we immediately started to hire to bring on some support staff. And then once we got the direct mail up and running, probably same year, we had a couple friends that were doing radio, very successful radio. A lot of financial advisors have shows in their local market. So then the next step was, hey, we should have a radio show, because our direct mail is now producing $1 million and plus in revenue, and we're doing extremely well with it. So what's the next step? And then it became, well, everybody else does radio. Why don't we do radio? Because again, when you see that everybody else is doing something, it probably works to some extent.
Right. You should probably
unless
do it.
unless they enjoy losing money. So we immediately then were like, let's hop into radio. Leaned on a couple of our friends for their connections to see, who could help us. Found a company that would produce our radio show for us and also coach us. So found a company. At the time, I don't even know if they're still under the same name, but we were working with Lone Beacon, and then we were working with Retirement Radio Network, and they would put together shows for us, do the research. And I'm sure just like you guys do, where you're doing a lot of the research, you have staff. They would do the research, put together bullet points, highlight key articles, and then send them on over to us and say, hey, this is what's trending in the areas. This is what's really big right now. This is what you need to talk about. And then they would listen back to the show and give us coaching notes. Hey, you should talk directly to your audience, remove these words from your vocabulary so you come off more powerful.
That's
so
cool.
Then just learning how to maximize radio became the next thing. And then media buying. So I got involved with the media buy, started to put together a package, and we do our radio with iHeart, because they pretty much own everything nowadays. So iHeart Media used to be Clear Channel, but we're on 1290 WJ102 in the local market. And then it became, now we have our show, how can we drive leads from that radio show? So that was the next transition to where we get clients from radio. Now with radio, and same with podcasting, sometimes it's not immediate. A lot of times we do recognize that they're more of a warm lead, though. When they do come into our funnel, they're like, hey, I've been listening to you for 6 months. Everything you guys say is spot on. I love you guys. I would love to come on into the offices. So at that point, they're already pre-sold.
Absolutely.
So the sales cycle is a little bit shorter than a live event through direct mail or something of that nature, because they're already pre-sold on pretty much your strategies, because you've been talking to these people for the last 4 months. So then jumping into radio, then from radio, it became, what's the next transition? A lot of guys will make the transition to TV. It's extremely expensive. We decided to stay away from TV. So then our next transition was, well, we do live events. How can we use Facebook to drive traffic to our live events. So then it became very similar to what our direct mail pieces are. What works in direct mail will actually work on Facebook, as crazy as that sounds. So then crafting Facebook ads that would drive to our networking events and our live events to our local office. So then just as simple as putting together our Facebook campaigns, very simple, straightforward, but to drive them to what we already know it works. So we know our live events work, so why not fill them cheaper and fill them with more people?
Right.
So then we jumped into the Facebook ad game, and now this year we've really started to produce content at scale where it's, all over my social media. I'm posting stuff for marketing and business perspective pretty much daily, sometimes twice a day. And then on my dad's side, we have enough content now stored up. We've been batching content for the last couple of months to where we can go on every platform, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and post 2 times a day. So giving that free content now is the next thing. So we're trying to really roll into content marketing. And then one of the strategies a lot of people don't talk about, which is what we're going to be executing on next, is when you have content that works on the internet and it's free, you then base your next offer based around that content. So if we're talking about tax planning and we notice a post does really well, that now becomes the basis for your ad on Facebook or Instagram. So tax planning piece of content does really well. We can then take that tax planning piece of content, make it an ad, and then drive traffic to that ad. And then the offer is going to be a tax planning offer, how we can help you save money on your taxes going forward. So now the next step is targeting with Facebook on the stuff that already works. So the one thing is none of this works without knowing your key demographic and your target market. So it's like you got to know your market and you got to know your messaging. But if you can get your messaging and your market down, then that message and marketing will necessarily not verbatim or not exactly identical, but it will work pretty much across the board wherever you place it. You just have to tweak, how it would work. So on the radio, when we say, call us for a Social Security audit, on Facebook, it would be click here to claim your Social Security audit. So we know that message works really well, and then you can place it as many places as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess it's looking at a lot of the analytics of the ad and seeing how it's doing, just to figure out which one's working the best, right?
Oh, absolutely, Brandon. Because at the end of the day, one of the biggest tricks I realized in the marketing industry is, and actually Jason just taught me this a while back, is, hey man, you can run an ad on Facebook for nominal dollars at $50 an ad and just run a headline, and then run 10 different headlines, and then take that headline, and now this was the best performing headline to analytics after a week. Now that's your headline, and then take the other 8 or so headlines, make those your bullet points, and then run that as an ad. And you can literally just sit. That's the benefit of social media. Social media gives you the ability to do these things for very low cost to entry, where direct mail, you're spending a lot more money. So you better be on top of your game, because you're going to spend a lot of money to send mail pieces out, because you need to do it at scale. But yeah, you got to constantly look at the analytics and tweak what you're doing, because that's probably one of the most important things. Is no message works the first time.
Right.
So you got to look at what works, and when it does work, double down on the things that work, and you got to run the winners long and cut your losers short.
Yeah. Very cool.
That's cool. Very strategic with that. I liked what you said about the run the 10 different ads, pick the one headline that works, and then use the bullet points as the other 9 that don't, or that weren't as good. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Then test your photos, test your videos, test all these things. I mean, the best marketers are constantly testing things.
Absolutely.
And when it works, then they're still looking, how can we improve upon the capture rate? How can we improve the conversion? And just little tweaks here and there. It's really not about overcomplicating things, is what I've realized. It's about simplifying things and then making sure you hone in on those things that work, and make sure those messages are rock solid, and that your end consumer at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Michael, I'm sure we could talk about this for days. I mean, your wealth of knowledge, but we're going to jump into our Moments of Truth segment here. It's the same 7 questions that we ask all of our guests, and we're just going to kick it off with the first one. Who is your success role model?
right now, I would say a gentleman by the name of Jason Wink. So that's changed over the course of the last year. It used to be, the big guys on Instagram or, the Gary V's of the world who have this insane work ethic. But my buddy Jason, who I'm fortunate enough to call him a friend, he runs a company we're partnered with, Retirement Wealth Advisors and Formula Folios. He's probably got a I don't know the word for it off the top of the head, but he's probably got a conglomerate of, say, $100 million worth of companies under his belt right now. Starting a new company by the name of Altruist to compete directly with Charles Schwab, Fidelity, TD Ameritrade. It's got about $32 million in venture capital fund backing him. But the main reason that I look up to him is he's unconventional. So I was around him in Chicago a couple months back, and he's like, I'm a terrible executor. And a lot of times you hear you have to execute in this industry, or you have to execute to be successful in anything. Well, that's true. You definitely have to do the work at points in your life. Absolutely. But he's a visionary. So he's like, I'm great at finding people that can execute for me and believe in my vision. So very much look up to him because he's countercultural in the fintech entrepreneur space. He has long hair, has a beard, wears jeans, doesn't ever wear a collared shirt, doesn't really own a collared shirt, but he's very successful. So when people say you have to wear a suit and tie in financial services especially, he does not. And he's the complete opposite. He has a lifestyle that people would love to enjoy because he's enjoying his time. He does work hard, but he's also, not afraid to employ the people that can give him what he truly wants, which is freedom and adventure. So he's employing great people, great CMOs, great COOs. And then eventually when he leaves his companies and moves on to the next company, great CEOs.
Nice.
And he's not social media famous. So he's the complete opposite of most of these guys out there that try to build these brands these days. He's not social media famous, very successful, but he's the complete opposite of what you would expect. And I definitely identify with that because, like you guys said earlier, a lot of people in this industry are older, they're suit and ties. So it's be somebody that's the complete opposite and that as a younger guy, I can identify with.
Love it. Awesome. Love it. What's your biggest success?
Our biggest success, I would say unfortunately, probably year one, just the fact that we doubled right off the bat.
Yeah.
That was one of those things where we hit the ground running immediately and just, not many people ever double their businesses, yet alone the first year we're doing it. And to do it the first year and the second year, I would say was the biggest success just because, it was a fun ride. And then it became more about the daily grind and consistently tweaking things to consistently grow. But the fact that we immediately were able to do that the first 2 years, go from $500,000 to $1 million to $2 million was just something that I'll always look back and say, I can't believe we did that. And even if I move on to other things, me and my dad are partners now to this day, but we always talk about me not being here forever.
Yeah,
I'll always get to look back and be like, we had definitely some arguments along the way, but the fact that we were able to immediately accomplish something like that is just something I'll always look back on, probably even when I'm 50, 60 years old, because it was a fun ride.
Yeah, that's huge. Cool. What's a typical day for you look like?
Typical day, I usually wake up around 6 a.m, usually try to get to the gym before I head out to work. So wake up, get to the gym, spend some time in there, get my stretching in. Not every day. Sometimes we go at night, but usually get into the gym, work out, and then come back from my workout. Typical routine from there. Just start to get ready for work, practice some gratitude. That's something that everybody I've ever been around that's successful talks about. When you're getting ready and you're starting to prepare for your day, practice some gratitude. Think of 3 things you're really grateful for. So I implement that into my routine almost every single day. I don't really spend time on my phone until around 8 o'clock. So I'm not on my phone or checking text messages from the gym to the gratitude to getting dressed. And then once I'm dressed and ready for work, I usually leave my house around 7:45 and I'm in this office at about 8:10, 8:15. If there's a lot of traffic, usually about 8:20. And then I'm spending the day from there on out working on usually my most important tasks. So I time block a lot of time to work on things that are important. Because I have a coach that coached me on execution. So again, very fortunate to work with certain people that teach me these strategies over the course of my life. And I spend time working on what's most important. and I try to ignore the distractions. So I get rid of the distractions. I have my phone on silent. I have my phone's notifications permanently off.
Yeah.
So I'm in
Tim
real
Ferriss
control
style.
of what I want to do. Yeah, so I'm in real control over what I want to do with my day. And then at the end of the day, usually I leave the office around 5:45, 6. If we don't have events, sometimes our nights go to about 9 o'clock at night. So we do work very hard, work long hours, usually 2 nights out of the week. But then I usually end my day with meditation. So I meditate almost daily.
Very cool.
It's a productive day.
Yeah, yeah. So what's your favorite quote?
My favorite quote would be, I'm very fortunate to share this one with LeBron James. I found out this is his favorite quote as well, and he's my favorite basketball player. So Teddy Roosevelt, man in the arena. So it's a very long quote, but at the end of the day, if you want to paraphrase it, it's essentially, it's in my journal. So it's in my journal written on the back cover. So it's always there with me. But at the end of the day, it's really talking about, hey, if you're not in the arena, if you're not the person that's blood, sweat, and tears is being put into this activity or this endeavor, screw everybody else that has an opinion on it. I mean, that's the paraphrase of it, which is the man in the arena, he doesn't know any tragedy but his own sword or his own fate. But the people that kind of hate and have things to say, they're not the one with the blood, sweat, and tears. But it's a lengthy quote. I think it goes for about almost 2 paragraphs.
That's a really good one. I love that quote.
Yeah.
So, Michael, what are some of your hobbies?
Hobbies? Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. I like to work on my fitness because I think that's very important. But I'd say my main hobby outside of work would be, I really enjoy working with the people I work with on the weekends. So coaching, I'm very into giving back. So coaching, and then boxing. Spend a lot of time boxing. I'm a huge fight fan. Boxing, MMA.
Same here. Look at my nose.
Yeah, I enjoy both. So I box, and then I watch pretty much every UFC event, pretty much every major boxing event are my path. So boxing and MMA.
I love it. I love
practice MMA. Too many bumps and bruises.
That's
but I am
brutal.
avid boxer.
Awesome. I love that. What's the best business book that you've read?
I'd probably say Think and Grow Rich, because that's kind of the iconic original.
Absolutely.
And then outside of Think and Grow Rich, it's not necessarily a business book, but Carol Dweck, Mindset, which is not one a lot of people read.
I've heard it's a great book though.
Yeah, if you're going to be involved in business, if you're going to be involved in anything, sports, athletics, anything you really want to accomplish, you have to have the mindset right. That's right. Carol Dweck's book really focuses on mindset and how that's really the differentiating factor. So mindset is the book a long time ago, and I think that's one that would benefit anybody in business, in school, working on your relationships. Mindset is one of the most important things.
Yep.
Awesome. And Michael, last question here. If there's one key piece of advice you could leave our listeners with about achieving success, what do you think it would be?
I would say, I'm not sure how many people talk about this, but I would say vision. You have to have a clear-cut vision. So you need to know what you want to accomplish, because Gary Vee talks about it a lot, the clouds in the dirt. You have to know what you want maybe 10, 15 years down the road, that aspirational vision that's, living in the clouds. But then you have to, once you have a vision, bring it to the near term and create goals around it. So I have a 10 to 15 year vision, and then I have a 3-year aspiration or a 3-year near-term vision. So my 10 to 15 year vision is that aspirational vision. And then my 3-year vision is more the near-term achievable vision that then you could base all your goals and plans around. So I think you absolutely need to have some sort of vision for what you want to accomplish 10, 15 years down the road. Then you need to bring it to the near term and create an execution plan in order to be able to have any opportunity at achieving it, especially with some work-life balance and not just going crazy. So vision and planning, those are the 2 most important things.
That's huge too.
Fan of motivation. Motivation will go away. Discipline and planning. You have to do the things you don't want to do in order to be successful. Some days of the week, you're just not feeling it. I mean, you said earlier you're a police officer. Every day you kind of have to bring your A game. So you're maybe one of the select few that you kind of got to be on point every day. But
definitely
some days you're just not feeling it. So you have to have a long-term vision.
Right.
You have to plan to get there. So that way you can remain disciplined.
I love it. So how can our listeners get in contact with you and where can they reach you at?
Yeah, easiest way for me is just to head on over to my Instagram, Michael_Convery. I post a lot of content on business marketing over there, and as well as starting to post some mindset content as well. But that's really where everybody can find me. And you can find me Michael_Convery or Michael Convery on essentially every single social media platform, even including TikTok these days. So
There you go.
Nice.
That's
I'm a
awesome.
Gary V believer. I'm all over the place when it comes to social media.
I love it.
Very cool. That's awesome. Well, Michael, we appreciate you being on the show today. You provided a lot of value for us, and it was exciting talking to you. And for our listeners, go subscribe to Michael. Go catch his Instagram, his TikTok, all that stuff. And also subscribe to our show so that way you're not missing any of our daily episodes. And join us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/wealthjunkies. Again, Michael, we appreciate you being on the show today.
Definitely, man. I appreciate it, guys. It was a fun time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.